Hi YouTube. Earlier today I watched a video by Tommartyn entitled Harbor Freight Review, and I put a link down here in the video description so you can check that out. It's worth watching. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but like Tom, of course, I shop at Harbor Freight, and I remember when Harbor Freight and Northern Tool were pretty much major competitors. You know, they were pretty close to the same. Both were mail order houses, and I ordered from both, and their prices and their equipment and so on were similar. But then Harbor Freight started putting stores all over the U.S. and doing other things that put them out in front of Northern Tool for most purposes. Now, there are some items that it's still better to go to Northern Tool for, but for a lot of things, Harbor Freight is the way to go, man. So, just thought I would do my own quick Harbor Freight review. Right here we've got LED submersible trailer lights, and I've bought several sets of these trailer lights, both the submersibles and the non-submersibles, and I've been very pleased with them. The wiring is not the best in the world, and so, you know, for a permanent installation I usually replace the wires, but even so, the light itself is a good deal, and the wires are just basically a free extra that you get. So I've been pleased with the lights. The screwdrivers, what can I say, man? They're free. They're free screwdrivers, and they work. Same thing with the digital multimeters. Now, I have some flute meters that I use for more serious stuff, but the great thing about these little multimeters is they do work, and like I said, they're free. I've never paid for one of these. Well, actually, I did buy one back in the early 90s one time. I don't remember if it was from Harbor Freight or Northern, one or the other, and it was about $10. But I ordered it to have something to throw in the Jeep, you know. And that's the good thing about these, besides the fact that they're free, is unlike a fluke, you can leave it in your truck and have it available when you need it. You don't want to leave a fluke in your truck all the time. Not that it won't take it, it's just worth too much money, you know. Quick couplers, you know, air compressor couplers, air hose couplers. I don't remember what I gave for these, but they were on sale, probably $1 per pack or something like that. Marine heat shrink tubing assortment. Good stuff. And of course, the tape measures. Again, free. They work fine, and I can have a whole bunch of them. And so I don't have to look far to find one. And welding tips. Those work just as well as the more expensive ones, and in fact, I don't know, it says made in China, but the Chinese factory that made these might also make them for who knows what welder manufacturer. But anyway, and over here, I forgot to mention, I've got one of these cheap plastic sawhorses, and it does the job. But watching Tom's video reminded me of something, and that something is Granville King. Oh, back in the 70s and 80s, I subscribed to Four Wheeler magazine, and they had some really good stuff back in those days. And one of the things that they had was a monthly editorial by Mr. Granville King. And Granville King, in case you've never heard of him, he's no longer with us, but he was probably the greatest shade tree mechanic the world has ever known. Granville King, he wrote series of articles for Four Wheeler Magazine called Tips from the Backcountry or something like that. He also wrote this book, and it's the Jeep Bible, written personally for the Jeep cult, and has a picture of him on front. If you're a serious Jeeper, this book is a must-have, and I'm going to put a link to where you can buy one of these books on my webpage, so if you want to check that out. Because if you're into Jeeps, you've got to buy this book. It's the best. The thing about Granville King is, you know, he was a practical man, and he got tired of being around people, and he moved down to Baja in Mexico and lived in a little shack. Actually, he didn't live in a shack. He lived in a small travel trailer and built a shed to store his tools and stuff in. And he had, I know he had a Honda ATC 110 three-wheeler, which has the same engine in it that my CT90 has. Well, actually it has the engine that the CT110 has, but same basic engine anyway. And he had Jeeps, and he had a variety of other vehicles, and just lived, you know, overlooking the, I don't think it was the Pacific, I think it was the Sea of Cortez it was overlooking. Anyway, he stayed down there, and he wrote his articles for Four Wheeler Magazine, and typed them out on an old Underwood typewriter, and once a month or so he would take his article and mail it, go to the post office and mail it to Four Wheeler, and pick up his paycheck from the previous month. And that was how he lived. He just kind of was a beach bum, I guess. And that's pretty cool, you know. He just hung out down there on the beach and worked on his Jeeps and stuff. And he was a celebrity, even though he was a hermit. But in this book, the reason that I was reminded of him from Tom's video about Harbor Freight is, in this book he said something that was different from what every other mechanic has ever told me. And what every mechanic I've talked to says is, you know, you got to buy Snap-on or whatever, buy the best tools you can. And I agree with that, actually. You know, it's good to have good tools, because cheap tools might let you down. I don't have any Snap-on tools, I never have. I've looked at the prices of them, and I just can't justify that price. Now, I do have some SK. I've had these SK tools since, well, I've had them for over 30 years anyway. And I've got some Craftsman. I've had the Craftsman tools for 20 years or so. But I've had less than stellar results from Craftsman tools. Not the combination wrenches, but ratchets. In fact, I've thrown away some Craftsman ratchets rather than return them for a replacement of another piece of junk Craftsman ratchet. Just telling it like it is. But anyway, somewhere in this book by Granville King, he says something different. He says, buy some cheap tools, especially combination wrenches, and put a pegboard on your wall in your garage or whatever, and put hooks on it. One hook for each size, and have multiples of wrenches. Yeah, maybe some Craftsman, maybe some SK, maybe even some Snap-on as your basic tools, and use them most of the time. But or use them for, you know, when you want to use a really good tool. But buy these cheap things and have multiples of those too. Have some of these in each Jeep or whatever, you know, each vehicle you own. So you always at least have some tools in there, because let me tell you, a cheap Chinese wrench of the proper size beats a good American-made set of pliers when you need to turn a bolt. And so that's what Granville was saying, you know. That way you always have wrenches. Have some in your truck, some in your Jeep, some in the toolbox of your three-wheeler or four-wheeler, and you know, some extras, because you will lose wrenches and you'll break them and so on. People will borrow them if you're not, you know, if you have friends, you're not supposed to loan out your tools, but you know, if you got very many friends, you know it happens. So anyway, that was one takeaway that I got from this book, was to, yes, buy some good tools, but buy some cheap ones too. And by the way, I got to thinking while I was considering making this video that one thing I don't have is a tool set near my generator, and I should, because when I'm running the generator, if I notice that a bolt is loose or, you know, about to fall out or whatever, or one of the fuel fittings is loose and starting to leak, I need a wrench that fits that right now. I don't need to go look for one. So, for the same reason that, you know, you want to have tools in your truck and so on. So anyway, go watch Tom's videos, including the one about Harbor Freight, and check out my webpage and buy a copy of this book if you're interested in it at all. And if you're not already subscribed, subscribe to my channel.